At an $800 million gala, surrounded by power players and recording phones, a man stood silent as red wine soaked through his white shirt. The CEO had just publicly humiliated him, calling him a charity case who didn't belong. Laughter rippled through the crowd. No one knew the quiet man in the simple clothes was the investor behind the entire deal they were celebrating. He didn't argue, didn't explain, just turned and walked out. But what happens when the person you destroyed holds every card? Jamal Rivers stood in front of the bathroom mirror in his modest apartment, buttoning a plain white dress shirt. The fabric was crisp, but unremarkable. No designer label, no cufflinks, just clean and simple. On the small table beside him sat a framed photo of him and his daughter Maya, her gap-toothed smile frozen in time from her 8th birthday 3 months ago. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. A text from Maya. "Dad, when are you coming home?" He typed back quickly. "I'll be late tonight, sweetie. Remember to eat dinner with Grandma. Love you." A heart emoji appeared almost instantly. He smiled, slipped the phone into his pocket, and grabbed his black suit jacket from the chair. Tonight required his presence, not his identity. The Grand Belmont Hotel rose 40 stories into the downtown skyline, its glass exterior reflecting the city lights like a beacon of wealth. Jamal pulled up in his 10-year-old sedan, handed the keys to a valet who barely looked at him, and walked toward the entrance. Inside, the lobby gleamed with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. A banner stretched across the reception area read, "Hail Quantum Systems, celebrating tomorrow." The security guard at the ballroom entrance held up a hand. "Invitation, sir." Jamal pulled out his phone and showed the digital pass. The guard studied it, then looked Jamal up and down. His eyes lingered on the plain shirt, the absence of a designer watch, the scuffed leather shoes. "You sure you got the right event? This is VIP only." Jamal kept his voice even. "I was invited." The guard frowned but stepped aside, muttering to his colleague as Jamal passed. "Doesn't look like the usual crowd." Jamal heard it. He always did. He walked into the ballroom and stopped just inside the doorway. The room was massive. Gold drapes framed floor-to-ceiling windows. Round tables covered in white linens filled the space, each one topped with towering floral arrangements. Waiters in black vests moved between clusters of guests holding champagne flutes. The men wore tailored tuxedos. The women glittered in gowns that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Laughter and conversation filled the air, loud and confident. Jamal moved toward the bar, staying near the edge of the room. A woman in a crimson dress turned and tapped his shoulder. "Excuse me, could you get me a glass of champagne?" She didn't look at his face, just gestured toward the bar. Jamal met her eyes calmly. "I'm not staff. I'm a guest." The woman blinked, her smile faltering. She glanced at his clothes again, then laughed awkwardly. "Oh, sorry. I just thought..." She trailed off, turning to her companion and whispering, "That's weird. Why would someone dress like that here?" Jamal walked away without responding. He stood near a tall arrangement of white roses, watching the crowd. A young woman in a server's uniform carrying a tray of glasses bumped into him accidentally. The tray tilted. Jamal reached out and steadied it before anything spilled. "I'm so sorry," the woman said, her face flushing. She looked up at him, genuinely apologetic. "Thank you. That would have been a disaster." Jamal helped her pick up a fallen napkin from the floor. "No harm done." The server smiled at him, a little curious. "You don't really fit in with this crowd, do you?" He returned the smile faintly. "Maybe not." She tilted her head. "I'm Sophie, by the way." He nodded. "Jamal." She studied him for a second longer, then moved on with her tray. At the front of the room, a tall man in a custom-fitted navy suit stepped onto the stage. His hair was perfectly styled, his smile wide and practiced. Marcus Sterling, CEO of Hale Quantum Systems. Beside him stood his wife Vanessa, draped in a silver gown that caught the light with every movement. She scanned the room like she owned it. Marcus tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight." The room quieted. "We are on the verge of something historic. Tomorrow, we will finalize an $800 million investment that will change the future of this company and this industry." Applause erupted. Marcus raised his glass. To innovation, to ambition, to success. As the crowd cheered, Marcus's gaze drifted across the room. His eyes landed on Jamal, standing alone near the flower arrangement. Marcus's smile tightened. He leaned toward Vanessa and whispered something. She followed his gaze, her expression shifting to one of mild annoyance. After his speech, Marcus descended the stage and made his way through the crowd, shaking hands and accepting congratulations. Vanessa walked beside him, her chin slightly raised. When they reached the refreshment table near Jamal, Vanessa stepped closer. Her voice was cool and clipped. "Excuse me, which department are you with?" Jamal turned to face her. "I'm a guest." Vanessa's eyebrows lifted. She glanced at Marcus, then back at Jamal. "A guest? I see." Her tone made it clear she didn't believe him. Marcus barely looked at him. "Probably someone from logistics. Don't worry about it." Vanessa smiled thinly and walked away, but her eyes lingered on Jamal with suspicion. Jamal stood there, observing them as they moved through the crowd. He could have ended it right there. One word. One introduction. But he didn't. He wanted to see what people did when they thought no one important was watching. People only showed their true nature when they believed there were no consequences. He thought of Maya, of the way she treated everyone with the same kindness, whether it was her teacher or the janitor at her school. That's what he wanted her to grow up believing. That worth wasn't measured by status. He'd teach her that by living it. Jamal moved toward the main seating area. Most of the tables had small name cards indicating reserved seating for executives and major partners. He found an empty chair at a table near the stage and sat down. Within seconds, a man in a charcoal suit approached. His expression was irritated. "You're in the wrong seat. This table is for senior partners only." Jamal looked up at him calmly. "I have an invitation." The man scoffed. "An invitation doesn't mean you understand where you're supposed to sit." His voice carried just enough volume that a few nearby guests turned to look. Jamal didn't argue. He stood and walked to a table farther back. Marcus was making rounds again, this time with a microphone in hand, conducting impromptu interviews with investors. He laughed loudly at his own jokes, his confidence bordering on arrogance. As he turned, his gaze landed on Jamal again. This time, he frowned openly. He handed the microphone to an assistant and walked directly toward him. A small group of guests followed, intrigued by the shift in Marcus's demeanor. When he reached Jamal, Marcus tilted his head slightly, his smile gone. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. This event is for partners and investors, not open to the public." Someone behind him chuckled. Jamal met his eyes without flinching. "I was invited." Marcus crossed his arms. "Invited by who?" "Because I don't recognize you, and I know everyone who should be here." His voice grew louder, more theatrical. A few guests took out their phones, sensing drama. Jamal said nothing. Marcus smirked. "Look, if you're looking for work, you need to contact HR during business hours. This isn't a job fair." Vanessa appeared at Marcus's side, a champagne flute in her hand. She looked Jamal up and down with thinly veiled contempt. "Honestly, this is a private event. If you don't belong here, you really should leave before this gets embarrassing." Her words were pointed, deliberate. The crowd around them grew. Jamal stood there, his expression unreadable. He could feel the weight of their stares, the phones recording, the whispers spreading. He had a choice. Reveal who he was. End the humiliation immediately. or stay silent. Let them show the world exactly who they were. He made his decision. He said nothing. Marcus's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a cold, cutting tone. I don't know who you are, but you clearly don't belong here. He raised his glass of red wine. The room seemed to hold its breath. Then, in one deliberate motion, Marcus tipped the glass forward and poured the wine directly onto Jamal's white shirt. The liquid spread across the fabric, dark and staining. The crowd gasped. A few people laughed nervously. Vanessa stood beside her husband, arms crossed, a faint smirk on her lips. Cameras captured every second. Jamal looked down at his ruined shirt. He didn't react, didn't shout, didn't move. He simply raised his eyes to meet Marcus's gaze. For 3 long seconds he held it. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. Sophie, standing near the doorway with her tray, watched him leave. Her face was stricken. She whispered to another server, "Why would they do that to him?" No one answered. The room buzzed with energy, half scandalized, half entertained. Marcus turned back to the crowd, raising his glass again. Now, where were we? Let's keep celebrating. Jamal stepped outside into the cool night air. The city hummed around him, indifferent and vast. He didn't look back. Inside his chest, something settled into place, a quiet certainty. He pulled out his phone and sent a single email. No explanation, just 2 words. Deal off. He got into his car and drove home. The shirt would stain. The moment would fade. But what came next wouldn't. Back inside the ballroom, the energy had shifted. The guests returned to their conversations, though a few still glanced toward the door where Jamal had exited. Marcus drained the rest